At the moment, plastics are getting a really bad press.
The washed-up remains of a throwaway society.
A worldwide deluge of plastic.
Experts call it a global threat.
The truth is actually they're wonderful materials, we just use them for all the wrong reasons. So they have a life expectancy of say 10,000 or 100,000 years, and the useful life of this thing, which is a single-use plastic cup, is actually about 10 seconds, or as long as it takes you to drink a glass of water, and then we throw it away. I could put this cup into a landfill site and actually probably dig it up in 100,000 years and it would still be perfectly usable as a cup. The reason we use plastics so much is because they're very easy to manufacture, it's really cheap, they're very adaptable, we can use them for all sorts of applications. The challenge is that we've got to get, as a species, get used to not using plastic for everything. And that requires us to actually start thinking about how we behave and how we interact with the environment, but also what our expectations are on things. Everyone's grown up with everything being plastic and disposable, stuff that actually we could probably use much different materials for because we don't need them to last 100,000 years. One of the most surprising things about plastics, and a lot of people don't realise, is we've been using them for thousands of years. We used to derive them from plants and from animals and from trees, and then we came through into the petrochemical era where we started mass producing plastics from oil. You can go back to a very famous picture of the 1940s which showed the future of everything would be made of plastic, and actually it is. And at the time that was thought to be a great thing, but now we realise it's not. So, but everyone's grown up with everything being plastic and disposable. Ironically, we're now looking back thousands of years to look for alternatives based on nature, produced by nature, that can replace these petrochemical versions that we've so excellently engineered. So we have some plastics already emerging called PHAs, PHBs and PLAs that are all derived biologically. They're made by microbes that essentially digest sugars and then exude polymers as a result. And then we can collect those polymers and use them instead of petrochemical derived ones. The other advantage is they're often biodegradable, but they are certainly renewable, which petrochemical ones aren't. In theory, the majority of plastics that we use can be recycled. However, when you recycle a plastic, you actually break down the molecular change, you make them shorter, which reduces their overall properties, but you also increase the variability of the plastic as well. So why would you use a more expensive plastic with lower performance and greater variability when you can just buy an off-the-shelf virgin one? In terms of improving recycling potential, there are several things we could do. The first is get consistency across the board in how we use plastics, consistency in how we collect them. You then also have opportunities to bring in issues such as taxation and legislation, which is emerging, and that will help change people's behaviour. A lot of it is down to education in terms of changing people's expectations of just being able to use plastic all the time. So what we're seeing with industry is actually a push to actually go back and start thinking about why we're using plastics in the first place, using them for longer term projects, longer term uses, higher value uses rather than disposable throwaway things with very short shelf lives, is part of that bigger climate issue that we've got. The truth is we're actually using more resources that the world actually has. So if we carry on, there's the certain climb like the 2.5 Earth claim, which means if we carry on as we're going, as a population on Earth, we're going to need 2.5 Earths to actually fulfill our resource requirements. So we need to get back to using more traditional materials, stuff that's renewable and is less damaging to our environment if it ends up in the wrong place. And unfortunately, plastics are one of those materials where this shift change needs to happen.